Hi, everybody. This is Nick Barta with Security First Financial. Wanted to go over kind of the application that we have, our short application. I get a lot of questions on that. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys and kind of run through that application real quick, kind of to answer any questions. So if you're filling this out for yourself or you're advising a client on how to fill it out, we're going to kind of go through it and start here at www.apply-nickbarta.com. This is where the link will take you. And this is your first screen. It's going to, purpose, if you're going to purchase, it's either purchase, refinance, cash out, refinance. Most of you guys are going to be looking for a purchase. Estimated purchase price, that can be what you kind of want to buy, but you don't have to fill this in if you really have no idea. If you go, hey, I don't know if I qualify for 200 or 400. This is kind of a wish list. So if you say, hey, I'd really like to buy about a $400,000 house. Source of down payment, if you're using, savings, you would pick that. If you're using down payment assistance, then you just want to pick whatever you have access to. So if you do have a checking and savings account, you can pick that. If you leave it blank, it's still going to let you go by. So the big thing here is anything that you don't know the answer to, for the most part, you can click next. And if it doesn't require it, it's going to let you keep going. If it's something that we absolutely require to be able to process your application, it'll, make you go back to that. So have you identified a home purchase? If you're buying the house that you're living in, you would click yes. Most of the time it's no, because you haven't found that property yet. So we'll click no. Type of property, if you're buying you're looking for a townhouse, a condo, single family residence, you pick that. Construction method, when this comes up, you don't have to answer this, but if you're looking at manufactured housing or a manufactured home, you would click that. Everything else is going to be site built. And then property use is, are you going to live in it? That's primary home. Secondary home, is it a home you're going to, buy in the mountains? Or an investment home, is it something you're going to rent out? So you're going to do primary home most of the time. Are you applying for joint credit? This is if you're not buying it by yourself and you're buying with another person, you would want to say yes. That'll give you the opportunity to fill in that second person's information. For speed purposes, we'll say no at this point, and then we'll go to the next one. Let's say that we did, put in some dummy information here. And just, I'll show you here, if you put just that basic information and you go next, it's going to come back and say, oh, you've got to at least fill in that you are a U.S. citizen. So you don't have to fill it. You can leave your social security blank. You can leave date of birth blank. But we would rather you didn't, because that really doesn't let us do much of our job. So we want to go ahead and fill this out as much as we can, but that red box is going to say, well, you can't move on until you at least put this in. So if you do run into something where you're just like, I just don't know what what to put here. It'll ask for marital status again. You don't have to put this down, but if you do, say you're unmarried. If you're unmarried, they'll ask you, do you have a domestic partner? Are you living with somebody that that you consider a spouse? So number of dependents, again, you can certainly do that. You put in your cell phone, you can list those number of dependents if you want. Again, it's not going to stop you. Privacy policy, it's going to ask you if you're in the military service, and it's going to go to the next one. So address, they're going to look for, they're looking for a 2-year history, but if you don't have your previous address, that's fine. It'll come up on your credit report. So you can put in an address here, your address here. And fill that out. Oops, wrong one, sorry. Say I lived there for 2 years and 4 months, and that's going to ask you about your housing. It's going to ask you to select one. Do you own that property? Do you rent it? Or do you have no primary housing expense? If you have no primary housing expense, many times that's you live with a family member, you live with mom and dad, and you haven't owned a place, or just haven't paid rent. If you do pay rent, it's going to ask you how much. Again, this isn't a requirement, but if you were under 2 years, you can add a previous address. But again, if you don't have it, I wouldn't worry about filling this out. We can always get that at a later date. This gives us a starting point. So you can manually enter your assets. So if you decide, hey, I'm, at this point, I don't want to add anything, you can just go by this. But if you go, okay, well, let's go ahead and put in, I'm going to use my savings account. So, or my checking account, I've got a checking account at Wells Fargo. And I don't know what the account number is offhand, but I do know that I have $5,000 in there. You don't have to have the address. You don't have to have any of this. And you can just hit next and they'll add that in. Ask for your employer. You don't need addresses and everything. Don't spend 20 minutes looking up your employer's address and the phone number for HR or anything like this. You're just, you're just putting in the name. If you have the business number, that's great. If you have your position, even better. The more information you have, but I don't want you to have to spend a lot of time here. So let's say I've worked there from 2010, so about 11 months. It's going to ask for income. So income, we're talking about gross income. So that means before anything is taken out, before health insurance is deducted, or any taxes are taken out, or if you're taking child support out of your check, it's before that. So if you make $5,000 a month, you put that here. If you have overtime, you can list that here. We do a 2-year average on overtime. So maybe you have $500 in overtime. Maybe you get a year-end bonus where you get $1,200 a year, and this is a monthly figure. You get $1,200 a year in bonus, so you're gonna put 100 there. And then commissions, that's going to be a 2-year history on that. They do a 2-year average. If you're self-employed, we're going to need tax returns to figure that out anyway, so you can estimate where you're at. If you have other additional income sources, this is kind of like if you were receiving retirement or alimony or child support, this is where that would go. So if you said, okay, well, I get $350 a month in child support, that is where you would do it. If you had, alimony as well, you would go in here and you'd kick alimony and say, I get 500 in alimony. And then you're going to go to the next one. So accepting the credit authorization allows us to pull a credit report. This is what allows us to actually pre-qualify somebody and pre-approve them. So we do encourage you to accept that. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, and this is where people get stuck sometimes. So this is an e-consent. What this is it allows us to communicate with you through email. We can send you documents through email. So we want you to agree to that. But you do get this little green box right here that says, thank you for completing the e-consent process. Unfortunately, a lot of people think they're done here and they jump out and they don't finish the application. And unfortunately, we don't get it done. So we do want to make sure we go past this screen. You're going to hit next on this, and it's going to take you to the declarations page, which these are a bunch of legal questions kind of about foreclosures and bankruptcies in your past. And so we'll go through these real quick. Some of them are very self-explanatory. Will you occupy the property as your current residence? That just means you're going to live in it. Yes or no? Have you had ownership in a property in the last 3 years? Have you, do you have a relationship? If you have a property that's already picked out, do you have a relationship with that seller? Is that seller your grandpa or your mom or your dad? You would want to say, if it is yes, you would want to put comments in here as to who they are. If you don't have a property picked out and you're just starting to look, then the answer to that is always no. They're asking this next one, C, are you borrowing any money for this real estate transaction from another party? This just means outside of the mortgage that you're trying to get. Are you going out and trying to borrow the down payment from a different source? And so that's something that, there's quite a few restrictions on that. So if that is kind of how you're planning on getting some of your down payment, you definitely want to talk to us. Have you or will you be applying for a mortgage loan on another property? This is not If you don't have any properties that you're looking at right now, this isn't another property down the street. This is more along the lines of, are you trying to buy a property in conjunction with the property you're trying to get qualified on here? So it's kind of, do you want to buy two properties? Are you buying one in Florida and you're buying one in Utah? This is, they're asking if you're buying a second property here. So that gets kind of confusing sometimes. Have you applied for any new credit? So this comes into play if we're pulling your credit today and you bought a car over the weekend. That car loan's probably not going to show up on your credit yet. So if you did get a car, you said, yes, I bought a, I've got a new Honda loan with a $500 payment. That just tells us to take a look for that when we pull your credit and ask you about it, because we'll have to document that. If it's no and you haven't applied for anything or gotten any new credit, you just answer no to that. Will the property be subject to a lien that would take priority over the first mortgage? We don't see this very often. Sometimes there's energy rehab loans and things like that could go in front. Those, what we're trying to ensure is that the mortgage that you take out with us is going to be in first position. The only thing that can create a problem that we can't usually get around are, tax liens. Sometimes you have a federal tax lien that unfortunately goes in front of everybody unless there's arrangements made. So we're going to answer that one no. Are you a co-signer or guarantor on any debt that's not disclosed on the application? So basically anything that's not going to show up on your credit that you've co-signed for, you want to go ahead and answer yes to that. Are there any judgments against you? That just means that anybody gone to court and actually put a judgment on you that you owe that you didn't pay them back. So you can default on any federal debt. Most of the time we see taxes that have not been paid, either state or federal taxes that have not been paid, or student loans that were defaulted on. So that's where you would want to say yes to that if you did have something. Are you a party to a lawsuit which you potentially have any personal financial liability on? That's basically, are you being sued by anybody in that lawsuit? Are you, in a position where you could lose money because of that lawsuit, either through, them suing you or a countersuit? So if you are involved in a lawsuit, you would want to answer that yes. And then have you conveyed title to any property in lieu of foreclosure in the past 7 years? That basically is you were going to get foreclosed on, but instead of getting foreclosed on, you basically gave the house back to the bank before they foreclosed. And so, and then within 7 years, have you completed a pre-foreclosure sale or short sale? That's when you sell the property, but you don't sell it for as much as you owed on the property, and the bank's willing to take a little bit less. There are some waiting periods if you do a short sale. So we would need to know that as well. Have you had a property foreclosed on? That's just when you lose it, when somebody would have taken the property from you because you didn't make your payments. And then have you been declared bankruptcy in the last 7 years? We would need to know that. So those are the main questions. Those get a little bit tedious, but that's kind of what you're looking at. My loan application, this is going to be your monitoring information. You don't have to fill this information out. You can certainly go by it, but if you are, not Hispanic or Hispanic, you're going to click there. If you are, Black or African American, you're going to click that. If you are a male, you're going to click that. And then you're going to hit next. It's going to take you to this summary. So this is where you really want to end up. You want to get to this summary, and this has all of your information on it. If you need to go back and say, oh, I forgot to put assets in here, you can go and you can click back and you can fix that. You can go back to your loan details, which will take you back to your submit page. Anything that you need to do, you can navigate through here, but you want to get to this page and you definitely want to hit this submit button. And when you hit this submit button, it takes a second, and then you're going to get this thank you that just says, thank you, congratulations, your information has been submitted, and a loan officer will reach out to you for the next step. So this is where you want to get. That is where That is the success of filling out this application. So I hope that answers some questions. If you guys have anything else, you can always reach out to me. Again, this is Nick Barta with Security First Financial, 303-709-9625. Thanks.